Now, I'm not saying what you're going through is definitely a dark night of the soul, but if you've been feeling lost or like things you did before just aren't working anymore, like you have no say in your life and life is just happening to you, and especially if you've been losing people and things left, right, and center, then I'm here to tell you that these things, my friend, are telltale signs that you may indeed be in the midst of the dark night of the soul. Now, my intention with this video is not so much to label you and define if you are or if you aren't, but if you in fact resonate with any of the stages that I'm going to mention, you can also apply my suggestions from my personal experience to help you navigate through this stage of your life. Again, whether you want to label it as a dark night or not. So let's get right into it. By the end, you'll understand what the different stages are, and you'll also understand how to navigate each stage effectively and efficiently so that you can minimize the suffering and the pain that can go along with such an intense experience. If you're new here, hello, I am your Muse Traci. On this channel, I teach manifestation the Neville Goddard way. I help you peel back the false layers of programming so that you can return to your true inner authority as the creator of your life. Because you aren't here to struggle and you aren't here to suffer indefinitely. Before we talk about the stages, I want to preface this with a bit of an overall explanation of what the dark night of the soul is. Because for me, there was a time when I just absolutely did not have interest in learning about the dark night of the soul. I didn't care to learn about it. It didn't pique my interest or catch my attention. That was until I was right smack in the middle of my own experience with it. And then there was no more sort of avoiding it or denying it. And it's not really that I was denying it. It was just one of those things that it didn't really resonate with me. It didn't pique my interest. And, I didn't want to find out all the details about falling into a deep depression and having my life fall apart, which I think is the way that a lot of people might view this experience. And so I first want to say the dark night of the soul is not a punishment. It's not a failure, and it's definitely not something you caused by wrong thinking. Absolutely not. It's what happens when an identity you've been living from can no longer support who you're becoming and where you said you want to go. And that's why experiencing something like this feels very confusing, especially in the beginning when you don't know what's going on. So I hope that that gives you a little bit more information about the dark night of the soul. And I also want to start with a quote. The dark night of the soul is a kind of death that you die. What dies is the egoic sense of self. Of course, death is always painful, but nothing real has actually died, only an illusory identity. And that quote is by Eckhart Tolle. So on the outside, it looks like a death, a shedding of everything false, everything you are not. But internally, something very beautiful and very powerful is happening. The false identities, the very structure that once defined your sense of self, is completely dissolving. Now, as you can imagine, to completely dissolve your sense of self can feel quite intense and maybe even traumatizing to the ego, especially when you don't know what's really going on and you assume something, or rather everything, is going wrong. But the truth is, nothing is going wrong, nothing at all. And if you submit to the process instead of resisting the process, you'll move through the stages more efficiently, and everything, and I do mean everything, is about to go right for you. So let's get into the stages. Stage 1 is the identity cracking, the disillusionment phase. I've heard this called awakening or disillusionment. Either way, this stage feels like you're flatlining. This is where things that used to fill you up or distract you or fulfill you, they just don't have the same impact or hit on you anymore. This stage can be triggered by some significant loss of a loved one, loss of a job, loss of money. Some significant loss in your life is usually, not always, but usually the catalyst for this stage. Inside this stage, you may feel a sense of spiritual depression. Again, the things, even spiritually, that you used to do don't have the same impact on you, and it may feel as if nothing you do is working. I personally experienced this phase as a sense of exactly that. I just felt like I lost my mojo, like nothing was working anymore. And there was a feeling like I'd completely lost control of my life. Like I literally had no say in my life anymore. So this can be quite confusing and disorienting as to why you suddenly feel this way. Like for me, it just didn't make sense. I couldn't make sense of why my life seemed to be falling apart. And this leads into stage two. Stage two is purification, the collapse, the emptying. This is where things get a bit dicey. People, things, and more people start to leave your life. This can be friendships, relationships, family members, coworkers, and some of these people or things may seem more dramatic and, harder to quote unquote lose than others. Again, that's definitely how it was for me. I remember the first friendship that really blew up in this phase for me. And at first, it was devastating to me. And I didn't know at the time, but this was the beginning of the crumbling of relationships that were built around my old persona, around the masks that I was wearing, the false self that I was showing to the world. And so, in this stage, when these relationships are leaving, it's because your old persona is dying. And so these relationships cannot come with you. They simply will not fit anymore. And I'll say more about that in the coming up stage, the next stage. But for me, the first one was the absolute hardest. And looking back, it wasn't really that this relationship was the closest to me, not at all. It's just that it had happened really early on in this stage, and I honestly didn't know what was going on in my life. I knew that it felt like my world was crumbling, but I was pretty ill prepared for the transition that my life was about to take. And so I was blindsided, you could say. And logically, on the surface, it didn't make sense why this relationship was blowing up in my face. There wasn't a really good reason for it, but yet it was. I felt betrayed. I felt abandoned. I felt misunderstood. And I felt these things in a really deep way. Again, not because this was a super significant relationship in my life, but I think my old self had certain attachments to this relationship that made it feel more significant than it actually was. Now, it's when things like this start crumbling that we are forced into the next stage. And that is stage three, illumination or integration. This phase is all about seeing the parts of yourself that aligned with and allowed and created the things that fell or are falling in the previous stage. This phase is all about bringing your shadow sides to the light and about recognizing the truth of your being. And by shadow sides, I don't mean the dark and evil sides of yourself. I mean the parts of yourself that you suppress and keep hidden from the world. The parts of yourself you learned are too much or not enough or unlovable or wrong. This is how the shadow is formed. And it's in this stage you'll be confronted with all of those parts of yourself. And to navigate out of the previous stage victoriously, we have to understand why the collapse and the emptying had to happen. And the reason is because those things, the things that are leaving and emptying, were built around the false self. the masks you wore to fit in, to be accepted, and to be loved. When you recognize and see the false self, it allows you to let go of these things that are leaving more easily, and it allows you to connect with and realize more of your true self. And you can allow your true self to emerge more and more in this stage. There's no more hiding and there's no more suppressing parts of yourself in this stage. This stage exposes all of it. For me and my experience, I went back and forth from stage 2 to stage 3, and I also see this with a lot of my clients. Your experience will likely be as more and more things are still being removed. Like, for example, in my life, I was able to see more of the false self that those things were built on and integrate those shadow aspects back into the whole, right? As more things were leaving, it showed me more pieces of myself that were false. And so I had to integrate that and shed the false layers. And right. So it kind of went back and forth for a little bit in between stage 2 and stage 3. And this is the process of integration that Carl Jung speaks about, which is a powerful and highly transformative process. This is where I actually started to make the connection that I was in the dark night of the soul. And this phase is also accompanied by starting to trust and starting to relax and know deeply that if something is leaving your life, it is for a good reason. It can't come with you into who you're becoming, and you really shouldn't try to make it. All of this is happening for you, for your benefit, and for your greatest transformation and purification and return back to truth. And yes, it is painful, but the more you can relax and create a relationship with the divine energy that lives within you and is intimately connected to you, you will at least allow this painful process to happen a little bit more easily. Again, it's not easy, but you can at least ease the pain and friction that your human self is experiencing. By realizing that all of this is happening for you, for your highest good, your highest evolution, and really bringing you back to the truth of your being. So, this illumination phase also includes a greater connection with truth, the truth of your own being, the truth of everything in your life so far, and a greater spiritual truth as to exactly what is going on here in this experience. And to be honest, you will be forced to acknowledge and trust this spiritual connection. It's part of this stage. And it's sort of a requirement in graduating from this stage. And that, of course, leads into the next stage, which is stage 4, the void. This is the phase where you've started to trust your higher self and your connection to the divine and the truth of your being, but not all the way. There's still parts of you that are scared and want to stay small and not sure you can trust fully this new connection to the divine. So, this feeling of expansion and illumination and connection to divinity, it's definitely there and it's definitely growing, but you may not trust it all the way yet. And so you'll feel a sense of being in the void, the space where you're not fully aligned with your inner divinity yet, and you haven't fully shed the false self yet. You are aware of the process and you have shed so much, but you're just not fully all in on your new truth yet. And so this space feels like a void, like an in between, because it very much is. And it can feel unsettling in and of itself, maybe not to the degree that the shedding stage was unsettling, but still, this stage can feel quite unsettling because you're not fully trusting your newfound alignment with your truest self yet. And if you're anything like me, you've shed so much and you're ready to get on with it. and you're ready to inhabit this new life that you're envisioning for yourself, but you still are getting your footing in this new way of being. You can feel it more than ever. And you know you want to go in that direction. And you know there's no going back to the false self. And you wouldn't want to anyway, but you're still practicing. Your task in this stage is solidifying yourself here before there is any evidence of this new alignment externally. Your external world isn't going to reorganize itself just yet. The shedding and the destruction has mostly stopped by this time. Or if there is still shedding happening here, it doesn't feel like destruction. At this point, it feels like an easy release, a relief of releasing things that no longer match and no longer serve you. You're happy to see them go. A very different feeling from the shedding and releasing that was happening in stage 2. And you will be held here until you really commit to finding this peace and this trust in the divinity within you, trust in your higher self. If you get ahead of yourself and start looking to create things externally from a place of still kind of seeking external security or external validation, you will feel the void in a very intense way because your higher self simply will not allow you to create from this space anymore. That way of being, relying on external validation or external security, is gone. And if you're still at all, still kind of a little bit halfway operating from this place, you will feel the void intensely because nothing can be created from that place anymore. You simply will not have the creative power if you're still using it for validation or security. You will need to let go of that fully, completely, wholly. No faking it. You can't fake your higher self. You can't fake your reality, which is you. So you'll feel the void until you really, truly realize on the deepest level that you are your own security. You are your own validation. You are the source of all that you need, and all that you need already exists within you. And only when you truly embody this will you then start to move on to the final stage of union. Stage 5, union with the self. This stage is characterized by such a deep, profound sense of inner union and inner security and inner validation that your outer world starts to shift and follow you effortlessly. This is the phase that I talk about all the time where manifestation becomes truly effortless. You're no longer seeking, trying, or looking for anything outside of you. And paradoxically, this is exactly when things start showing up in your reality. And it feels like magic in a sense. It feels like reality is reorganizing around you in the most beautiful and effortless way. And it feels like everything is conspiring in your favor. And this isn't happening because you efforted or did the techniques. Techniques are truly no longer needed once you reach this phase. You've shed so much of the debris that the techniques were trying to cover up or overcome that you literally don't have to try because there is nothing left to overcome. And this is exactly the place I help my clients get to in my coaching program. And you don't have to go through a dark night of the soul to reach this place. As I said in the beginning of the video, not everyone will go through such an intense and dark phase. If you are, great. It just means you're meant to. And my intention is that my experience in this video will help you navigate this beautiful gift of an experience with the most amount of grace and ease possible. And if you're not, that's great too. Maybe you've been in one of these phases, and this video will help you understand just a single phase and help you navigate that and get the most out of it. Again, this isn't so much about labeling it as a dark night or not. My intention is that whatever you're going through, you can find a sense of trust and knowing that it's truly happening for you and for your highest good and highest evolution. And whatever you're going through is necessary to take you where you want to go, to the individual desires and goals that have been placed inside your heart and mind. If you want more personalized guidance and help navigating through any type of self realization, spiritual awakening, or dark night of the soul, that is exactly the work I do with my clients. You can find all the information about working with me at the link in the description below. There's also a link in the pinned comment. If you want to book a free consultation with me, you can click that link and book a time on my calendar. Thank you all so much for watching this one. I'll see you in the next video.